Hey, good morning, YouTube. This morning we're going to go through kind of the thought process that takes you from a regular job to an outside job and to your own business. A lot of people have the dream to have their own business, but they're really possibly better off working for someone else. And I'll take you kind of through the thought process of allowing yourself to shift from one into the other. We'll just go through some of the numbers so you can understand. So a regular job, one of the things on a regular job you're going to do is the company decides what you do. Okay? So you go to work, a company tells you what you do, and based on what they tell them, based on that, then the company decides the value you create. Okay? So you go to a job at McDonald's, and you're taking orders. The company told you to take orders. That's your job. The value you create is around some multiple of what you get paid. So let's say you get paid, $12 an hour. Then on that pay, the value you create, let's say the value you create is $20 an hour, so the company's making 8 and you're making 12. Okay? And you say, well, this isn't really fair. Well, it doesn't really matter if it's fair. You're in the business of doing what they told you to do, and that's how you create the value. Let's go through an outside job. Let's say you go home and you mow the lawn. Okay? You mow the lawn. You decided what you did. The value you create is something around what it costs someone else to do it. So let's say the value you create, it takes you an hour and a half to do it. The value you create is $50 divided by 1.5, or $33 an hour. Okay? Now, it's not really $33 an hour because you have expenses on this, so let's just put this expenses in here. And those expenses go against this value. Okay? And so let's say the expenses to mow the lawn, averaged out between the mower and the gas and everything, let's say the expenses is $10. And so let's take this value from 50 down to 40 just with those expenses. Then you're creating a value of $26 an hour, and you get that $26 an hour. Now, instead of mowing your own lawn, you could pay a kid to mow the lawn. In that case, you are paying the kid, let's say $25 to mow the lawn. Maybe he's using your lawnmower, so you still have the $10 expenses here. And so the value you create is, and we are just going to do the straight value like as if it was an hour of work, is going to be 25 minus this 10 expenses, so 15. So first way you made $26 an hour, second way you made $15, and we're just going to go on single hour here calculation. So let's take another job. Hot water heater. Hot water heater goes out, and so you go and you say, what is the value of this job? And for a normal person, let's say the value of the job is $2,700. Replacing your own hot water heater would take a plumber 2 hours. Let's say it takes you 5 hours. And doing it yourself costs about $550 plus any pipes and things. Let's say $600 is the expense. And let's say it takes you 5 hours, and so you've got 600 minus 2,700, which is 2,100, divided by 5. And so you're making $420 an hour doing that job. and that is doing it yourself. Okay? Now you're a hot water heater repair person, and you're doing that on the side for yourself, and you made $420 an hour. You compare that to your normal job, and that's a significant difference. You compare your normal job value creation to your job for mowing the lawn, and it's about the same. Let's say instead of doing your own hot water heater, you pay a maintenance guy. Now, you pay a maintenance guy, and so you're paying the maintenance guy now, and let's say you pay him $400 to replace the hot water heater. What's the value of the job? The value of the job is still $2,700. $400 is what you're paying him. You still have this $600 expenses. But now we're just going to figure your return on a single hour, and we're going to say that your return is $2,700 minus the $400 minus the $600. Okay? Now, is that true? Well, not completely, because if you do it yourself or you do it through him, really there's a risk factor in here where the hot water heater could leak based on how you did it, and you could get some kind of a damage. But let's just say that damage is, let's say the damage value is $700, and let's say that there is a 25% chance that it's going to happen. Well, then the risk value of that damage is $175. So when we go in and we create the expense here, instead of just doing $600 expense and doing $2,100, we're going to take the $175 away, and we're going to change this number. Let's just make this an even $200, if that's okay. I like easier math. And this $1,900, because you're now assuming a risk, and a risk has a value, is now $380, and this one we're going to take off the $200 risk, and now it's $1,500 for the single hour, or $380 per hour to do it yourself. So now you have a hot water heater you've done, and that took you 5 hours in a week, and doing the hot water heater yourself, you can probably do that every 15 to 20 years. Let's say 15 years. And so every 15 years you're going to do $500, and that's going to save you around it's going to save you this $1,900 every 5 years. That's $100 a year. Don't worry about that. Now, what's another job that you do? I mean, if what you're doing now is you go to a W-2 job and you do what the company decides you do, you create the value they decide that you create, then they pay you based on that value that you create, and then you come home and you take a nap on the couch because you're tired, and you watch TV because you need to relax, and then you eat, and then you go to bed. You're actually not creating any value on the side. And so this part about creating your own business, this comes out of the necessity from things you're doing on the side requiring more time, that this value overwhelms this W-2 job value here, right? So once this outside stuff starts to be, significant compared to this W-2, you're not going to let the W-2 interrupt you making more money. So if you go out here and you suddenly have 20 houses and you're replacing one hot water heater a week on those houses, then you're working 5 hours. Maybe you need 5 hours less over here. So let's say you do another one. Let's say you do your brakes. Let's just say brakes. Brake pads and rotors, okay? Now, we're not going to pick anything complicated here. Brake pads and rotors are not complicated, and you can get somebody to show you how to do those once and pay them, and we'll just talk about the return the second time. So how often do you replace your brake pads? Let's say every couple years. So over here, we're just going to add 2 years. Oh wait, you have 2 cars, so once a year, we're going to do that. Hot water heater, we're going to do 19 years. And so brake pads and rotors. So now let's say brake pads and rotors. What is the cost to do 4 sets of brake pads and rotors at the dealership? I'm going to go low. I'm going to say it's $1,000. Okay? And we may bump that up in a minute. What's the expense to do that? Well, you've got the pads, and there's in a box, there's I think a pair of pads for the front and the back in a box, and that's 50. That's 100. And the rotors, they sell those. I'm not sure if they're in pairs, but they cost more. So let's say that you have $400 here in expenses, and let's bump this up to $1,200. I really think it's higher than that, but we'll say $1,200. Or let's just back it down a little bit. Let's back it down to your front. And then this one, I'm going to go rotors with 100 and something brakes. So we'll say $250 you had to buy a part for expenses. Alright. Now, you do brake pads and rotors here. And the savings that you have is $500. And it takes you 2 hours to do them. Now, the second time won't take you 2 hours. It'll take you like an hour to do both, okay? So now you did your brake pads every year, and you're making $250 an hour, or a total of $500 for the 2 hours that you do it. So that occupied 2 hours of time for you at $250 an hour. Now, you could also pay a person. So you know a guy, he knows how to do it, to do brake pads and rotors. And you see, I'm kind of adding in that it costs you something to do it. And you do it once a year, and the value is $750. And now you're going to pay him $150. And so $250 expenses is the same. And so instead of saving $500 here, you're saving $350. Okay? And then you're just going to do it for 1 hour. Because that's what we're doing for anything we get somebody to do it cheaper, and you're at $350 an hour. Now you've now occupied in doing this around 2 hours per year plus 5 hours every 19 years, and so your occupation of time off to do this work is very, very small. 1 day every year, let's say, okay? So what you're trying to do here is you're trying to add work to your plan and to what you're capable of doing that is paying you a huge amount of work, a huge amount per hour, compared to the value you create at your job. If you can create $1,500 an hour in value for yourself by hiring somebody directly to do your hot water heater and taking that risk every 19 years, well, that's great. But if you could hire it every year to do it, now you're a plumbing company, right? So that's how they're making their money. They're either making money like this or like this. This is your plumbing company doing one of these two things. Either hiring plumbers to work for themselves to do the job, making them $1,500 an hour, or they are minus some expenses, which we have here for directly for the job, but indirect for off the job. Or you have the hot water heater that you're doing yourself, so the plumber is the company, right? Or the the person doing the brakes is the company, right? And so they're making money. Now, what are other things you can do to make money? Some of the other things you can do to make money, significant money per hour, depend on your mentality. And so let's say there is a book, okay? And reading this book is going to cost you, it's going to take you, let's say, 4 hours. But the direct implications of what you do different for the book or let's say $1,000, and we're gonna say that the implications are $1,000 per year. Okay. Well, now you have a situation where you do the work once, and so let's say this book takes you 4 hours to read, and so we're just gonna say, what's the expense of the book? $20. So are we gonna even include that? Not really. And so let's say you make the $1,000, you make the 1,000, you divide by the hours. So that's $2.50 an hour to read the book. Now that thing that you do for the book, let's say it saves you $1,000 a year. That's $2.50 that you spent, that you made by reading the book the first year. Every other year, your profit on that is, just profit. And so let's just take this and let's say, okay, but my profit, I'm going to give myself credit for 20 years of that profit. Okay? So you take a book, you read the book, it saves you $1,000 a year. And so over here, the implications last for 20 years. Okay, now you're at $20,000 instead of your wages for this are not this. The wages for this are now $5,000 an hour for reading that book. Now, what is the book? That is part of the problem, is having to find that. But if you can find something that you can do that makes you $5,000 an hour, I would suggest that you do it. What about a budget? How much does a budget save you? How long does it save it for you? How much time does it take? Let's say that your spending per month is $5,000 and a budget saves you 5%. Okay? That's $250. Now, how long does the budget take? About an hour. Okay? And so, easy money here. The value to you is $250 per hour that you spend on that budget, and your time frame for doing it is 1 month. Okay, now, this is doing the budget. Doing the plan, okay? The budget is just a plan of how you're going to spend. Now, that is $250 an hour. Now, let's say that you say instead, I don't know how to budget. Okay, so that is a different thing. So let's say you don't know how to budget. Learn to budget. Okay? So if you don't know how to budget, learning to budget saves you $250 per year once you do it. Now it's going to take an hour for implementation, so let's change this and let's say $125 of that value is doing it, and $125 of that value per month is learning how to do it. So we take 125 times per month times, let's just give us the value up front, $30,000, and let's say learning how to budget takes you 5 hours. Let's say 10 hours, okay? So then you take this 30,000 equals 30, 1, 2, 3, divided by 10 hours. And learning to budget is taking you, it's paying you $3,000. Okay, so you're making $3,000 an hour by learning to budget. You don't know how to budget, you're just trying to prohibit yourself from making $3,000 an hour, I guess. I mean, what would you do for $3,000 an hour? I mean, I would probably lick the carpeting down here or whatever for $3,000 an hour. So I would certainly learn how to budget, which is why I know how to budget. It's because I can't afford not to learn how to budget. This is a ridiculous sum of money to make per hour compared to your job where you're creating $20 an hour. Even if your job, let's say your job value, you're creating $100 an hour. Let's say you're like an engineer or something, okay? It's giving you $100 an hour. You're a great paid engineer. You're making 50 because, well, and you're still doing this, right? Now you're great. Now you're at 100. Now you come down to here, you're probably paying somebody to mow your lawn because you lose, $75 by mowing your lawn yourself. Maybe you're paying a kid to mow your lawn, and you're saving most of the time, and you're saving some money there. But down here at the hot water heater, you might still do it yourself, or you're paying somebody else to do it, right? And so now you're implementing some of these things. Now, when these things get to be big enough, then you have a business. Okay, so if you can, for instance, if the highest paying business down here is learning to budget, learn to XXXXX, okay? Whatever it is. If your business is learning this, that's pretty high per hour. That's $3,000 an hour. So, I mean, that's a huge business to have. How many hours you have to work for $3,000 an hour? Now, finding out what those things are that you can do, what you can learn, which books you should be reading that make you $5,000 an hour, that's kind of the key. I'll give you one, and you should not read it because you're too busy. See right here, you're too busy with this, or somewhere between here and here. Don't read this. There's a book called Wealth Without Risk, and there's a chapter on insurance. Okay, and this chapter just explains to you what insurance is, when you need it, and what you should change on your insurance, and that will save you, I would say, at least $500 a year in this time invested. And that chapter probably takes you about an hour, and so we're going to say that value is $550 per year. Oh, that's $550 per year for an hour. That goes here. Over here is equals 550 times our 20 years will give us now is $11,000 value for reading this chapter and doing kind of what it says, or learning what it says. So that's $11,000 to do that, which is, it says $550 a year, but really it's about $5,500. So let's say a couple of hours you spend on it for that thing, and you're only going to do it once, and it's going to last for years. So I mean, that's a pretty huge payback. I don't know why everybody hasn't read that. I guess is my thing. Because for me, the reason I do these things is because I'm lazy. I am too lazy to do this. I'm too lazy to do this. And so down here, I'm trying to figure out what these things are, and maybe this pay a guy for maintenance, right, on the hot water heater, things like that. There's also ways to outsource this risk and also get part of the savings, and I do that some on rental houses. So I don't do the work myself. I actually go through a company, and they take the risk, and they do the thing top to bottom, because maybe I have so many jobs, then they'll give me, advantageous pricing. But I wanted to take you through this because this is the thinking that gets you down into the business. And if today you are doing what the company decides you to do, and you don't like that, then my question for you to go find out is, tell me these things that you are doing. You can put them in the comments, but tell me these things that you are doing where you're creating a multiple of the value that you get paid at your job, and those things can possibly create a business that you can run. You don't just go from 20 to 5,000, in one step. But this is the thinking that gets you into there. My thinking is, as you add things down here, maybe you add a rental house. Okay. Now your first rental house is not a business necessarily, but it may just be down here. Question is, how much does it make you, or how much does it pay you? Now, one thing I will tell you that's even a magnifier of this is that these types of savings in here, these are savings of money that has a tax advantage, because that money that you saved, you don't pay taxes on because you've already paid it. So if I save $5,000 that is even better than $5,000 of income because no tax on that savings. And so give yourself even a multiple of 2 for a lot of these savings things, because if you go out and replace your hot water heater and you make $3.80 an hour doing it yourself, saving the money, you're actually making about double that, because your tax rate up here is about, let's say, 50% down here. And so really when you compare this to here, you're comparing about $50 to $3.80, or you're comparing $100 to $760. And so that's kind of the thing. So these are the things I started with. I start with the hot water heater, then you move towards the paying a guy to do it as your time gets tighter, right? And then you do a rental house. How much does it make you when you buy it? Let's say it makes you $25,000 when you buy it because it's below market value, and then you spend 10 hours on it. So let's say now you spent $250. Now you got let's say you spent 10 hours, $2,500 an hour is what you got paid to do this once. And then let's say ongoing, then you have the management takes you a certain amount, or you pay someone else to do it at an advantageous rate. And so now you start multiplying this list of things that you're doing. And then at some point, sometimes you put those together into a business that you might have another level where you have someone managing the manager. And that value creation here, this column, is really what propels you into doing it for yourself. And most people should probably stay over here where the company decides what you do and the value you create and kind of pushes you towards higher value targets, because it is difficult sometimes to get yourself to think this way and go replace your own hot water heater rather than paying someone else to do it. And a lot of people are scared, and there's barriers to that. But to me, the rate per hour that you're making really overcomes most of those barriers. I know this is a long video. I'm sorry it's so long, but I really wanted to take you through this thought process and what really propels you into making money. And I'll talk to y'all later. Like and subscribe. Maybe comment down below a couple things that you do that make you money per hour outside of work. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.